Welcome to the Product Boss Podcast, where we help product-based businesses grow their sales and improve their strategies.
Hey everyone, I want to introduce you to my co-host and biz bestie, Mina Kunlo-Sitep, an Amazon guru that has built a multi-six-figure product-based business.
And introducing the other half of the Product Boss, Jacqueline Snyder. She has helped launch and grow over 500 fashion apparel and accessory brands, even one of her own.
And together, we share our inventory of secret weapons that will help you dig deep and do the work it takes.
Are you ready? Let's build together.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Product Boss Podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Snyder, with my beautiful co-host, Mina Kunlo-Sitep. Hey Mina.
Hey Jacqueline.
Do you love all the names that I call you before?
They build up my confidence right when I'm going in for a podcast episode.
She never knows what's coming at her, and then I always watch her eyes go like, oh, okay. So thank you everyone for joining us again. We are really delighted today to have a very, very special guest with us. We have Joanna Parker. She is the founder and chief product officer of Yumble. Welcome to the podcast, Joanna.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
So please tell our listeners a little bit about Yumble and your product line.
Sure. So Yumble is a weekly subscription of fully prepared, healthy, yummy meals designed just for kids and delivered straight to the homes of busy parents. I started Yumble really with two missions at hand. One was to help busy parents and make their lives a little bit easier, and also to help children all across America have access to healthy, delicious meals without all of the stress and work that's generally involved.
Yeah, that's like a second job, especially if you have a picky eater.
Yeah, so I really started Yumble. I have 3 young kids, and I started it out of my own personal pain point of finding it just super challenging and time consuming to get healthy, delicious food on the table that was made from ingredients that I was really happy with and food that my kids actually wanted to eat every day.
And how old are they?
My oldest is 9. I then have a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old daughter.
Yeah, it is challenging. I mean, I even think being somebody, a big question that clients give us all the time are like, how do you do it all, right? How do you run a business, have kids, be a spouse, whatever it is. And so it's like, I need a personal chef. I need a housekeeper. I need all the things. And you're taking over that sort of issue that we have, which is like that personal chef for our kids. So tell us about the food. Like, what are you sending? Is it frozen? Is it fresh? How does it come?
Sure. So when customers go online, they can choose anywhere from 6, 12 to 24 meals. Those are the 3 plan sizes. And you get to hand select which meals you want from our menu. And our menu typically has around 30 choices each week. They vary from lunches, dinners, breakfasts, and a couple of snacks. So people can really cater to what their family's needs are and when they plan to use Yumble. Most of our meals are sort of healthy twists of classics and favorites of kids. So think mac and cheese, but it's made with a protein-infused pasta, and it's an all-natural cheese sauce with no added preservatives. We have these chicken pops that we are really proud of. It's a white meat, antibiotic-free, hormone-free, basically chicken nugget, but in round shape. It's baked in panko crumbs, and it's on a lollipop stick. So it's super fun for kids, and they can dip it and dunk it. And that's really a big part of Yumble, is making mealtime, taking it away from being a stressful time to being a really fun time.
Oh yes, the stress.
Yeah. It's stressful for moms, but when kids have a good relationship with food, that carries them throughout life.
True. And that's really why I started this, was I felt that the younger kids develop healthy eating habits, and the less stress there is around mealtime for children, the stronger their healthy eating habits would be for the rest of their lives.
So you're saying yelling at my child to eat his last piece of broccoli is not ideal.
And I know that from personal experience.
I'm like, but it's covered in cheese. I've had cheese all over it.
I know. I just had a joke with somebody the other day where they were saying something like, I bet you never run around chasing your kid with like a fork with that last bite. And you're like, just eat it. And as I was chasing my son, like, to the school bus, I do. We all have those moments.
So yeah, I think, and so thank you, I guess, first as a mom for coming up with a solution for us, for a kid. So tell us a little bit about, since this is a product based, podcast, tell us a little bit about the conception of it. Like, how did you get started? What was the first thing you did to test this into the market and actually, like, it's cooking, right? You needed a kitchen, and how did you start?
Yeah. So I didn't spend a lot of time researching. I knew I had this pain point. I had talked to my friends about it, a billion times. And my husband, who's my co-founder, had started businesses before, and he was sort of encouraging me to find what I felt was a pain point for myself and solve it. So when I was telling him about, feeding kids and how stressful it was, and it was a recurring problem every single day, he said, "Great, why don't you see if other people have this problem, not just you and your girlfriends?" So I actually posted anonymously on a Facebook mommy group in New York City. And I said, "Does anybody want me to cook their children a week's worth of dinners?" And I didn't really think anybody was going to take me up on it because they didn't know who I was. I didn't have a menu. I didn't have a website. I had nothing. But I was bombarded with, "Yes, please, cook me whatever you're making." And so I quickly ran home. We were actually at a family vacation. I had to cut it short and come back. And I quickly came up with a menu, cooked everything, packed everything myself, delivered everything myself. I took the first 10 people who responded and put everybody else on a wait list. And I really just let that customer base grow. When they returned the next week and asked if I was doing it again, that's when the idea for subscription really clicked. And I realized parents have this problem today. They're going to have it next week. They're probably going to have it for about 13 or 14 years until their children are grown up enough to cook for themselves. So that's really how I got started.
So smart.
And so funny that those women, they had no idea who you were.
No idea.
I love how you went
Yeah.
bold there and, just posted up on a Facebook group and they were like, "Yeah, we love the idea."
That's how we really knew that there was a demand for this product. And then it was just about finding, market fit.
Did any logistics things that was kind of a learning lesson?
Oh, yeah. Well, since I was doing everything on my own for the first couple of months, I learned every part of the business. I mean, I didn't have an official culinary background. I definitely didn't have an operations and logistics background. So learning how to do customer service, packaging, delivering, cooking, sourcing, all of that stuff, I had to learn it all on my own. And what I realized was very early on that it is a very, very operations heavy business. And that's when my husband and I decided to bring on Dan Treeman. He's the former co-founder of HelloFresh USA. And he comes with a lot of operational chops. So I think my biggest learning early on was find partners who can complement the areas where you are not as strong.
Yeah, so smart. So you started this out, you brought on someone to help you sort of fill in the gaps of your knowledge. When did you transition to a commercial kitchen and sort of make your first hires?
Yes, we transitioned to a commercial kitchen pretty early on because of, quality assurance and legality and all that stuff. In June of 2017, we officially launched as Yumble. And at that time, we were a team of 4 and slowly started adding people as we needed them. But we really bootstrapped for a while and continued to, but really at that time wore almost every hat.
Were you and your husband employed? Like, did you have other careers somewhere where you were juggling this, or were you guys like, we're out, we're going to do this?
We both went in 100%.
Amazing.
So tell us a little bit about where your business is now.
So today, about a year and a half later, we are in 31 states on the eastern half of America, hoping to be national by the third quarter of 2019. We are a team of 18 and delivering tens of thousands of meals a week.
Amazing. So this is something I think our listeners are going to really like to know about, that you were actually on Shark Tank, right? And you were funded by Bethenny Frankel, one of my favorite housewives.
I drink her margarita mix every week, I feel like. Any girl.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was quite an experience.
When did you get on? When were you on Shark Tank?
We were on December 9th of 2018.
Okay. So about like 6 months after you started, or no?
No, a year and a half.
Like, what year is it? We're in 2019.
No, that was just, what year is it? That was just 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm like, I'm already in 2020, guys. Like,
Yeah.
I planned out the whole year.
Okay. So you were in business for a year and almost a year and a half, right? When
Yeah.
you went on, and then a year and 3 months. And so now you're a year and a half old. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's a long application process. We applied with me and my husband. They fly us out to California. The whole time you are just sort of pitching to the studio, and then you go out on stage, and it's pretty daunting. But I always say that I'm very grateful I did it with my husband, because at this point it's all like a little bit of a blur. It was so fast and so kind of surreal. So we kind of look at each other every once in a while and we're like, did we say that? How did that go? And it was just really thrilling.
And so who did most of the pitch? You or your husband?
I did. We had sort of planned that I would do most of the talking. And then when they started kind of asking us more about the numbers, because he's more of the numbers guy in the business, he would start talking. But it's actually pretty funny because, and I told him beforehand, I said, when it starts to get to a negotiation, like, I'm just going to let you handle it. And when Bethenny made the offer, I like elbowed him really, really hard. And I was like, take the offer. And they edited that out.
You like push him down. You're like, I know what I want.
Exactly.
This is when you need it. Yeah. This is when you need a code word, right? Like margarita. That means take the deal. Tequila means no.
It's really interesting, the questions they ask in terms of getting you prepped to be on the show, because it really makes you look at your business and see what you would value it at, what you really need and want in your business, because people can say a number, but do they want the partnership? Like, what do they need? And I think the brilliance about your business is you guys very early on saw, in order to grow it, you needed to bring on the right people to really build it to something where you're a year and a half later in 31 states. I think you've like multi-million-dollar company, right, in terms of funding and all that. So what would you say the things that you learned, like some of the most important things you learned, like prepping for the show or being on the show, that you maybe didn't know before you were applying for the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great question, because we definitely, we were fortunate. We were sort of in the middle of raising our Series A, and the Shark Tank part was just sort of like a piece of that. But so we had been very familiar with our numbers and our evaluations and where we kind of put ourselves, because we had other investors who were interested at the time. So I think the question that we really had to ask was, what did we want from one of the sharks, and who would be the right fit? It wasn't just a financial need that we had. It was really also about, like you said, the right partnership and finding the right person to kind of help us get where we needed to go.
Did you want Bethenny then? Well, you have to say yes now.
Yeah. So I was actually really excited when I heard she was going to be on, because I feel like, first of all, she's a really, aggressive businesswoman. She's got a nutrition background, so she really understands the health part of it. And she's a mom who's busy. And you could tell from the second we walked out onto the stage, and, all she knew of us was what they displayed. And she got the concept right away. And, for me, that's really what I look for in an investor, is someone who really understands the product and the demand that we're trying to fulfill.
Mm-hmm. And you're in New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's a New York mom too. I mean, it's just a totally different lifestyle. Like, you can get breakfast delivered to your apartment in New York City. Like, before anybody ever had Instacart, like, you could get a guy on a bike bringing you a coffee.
Exactly.
That would be amazing.
In like 5 seconds.
I was like, when I moved there, I was like, oh, wait, and I can get cookies at 3 a.m. This is amazing. So, all right. So you found the right fit. You saw her eyes light up. Basically, it sounds like, you knew that she understood it, which is really important. And then would you say the visibility on the show helped also with sales? Like, was that your ad campaign, your national thing that grew you? Or did you already have that momentum, or were you paying for press and all that before?
We definitely had momentum before, but it was definitely a very nice tick in our numbers. And it was very exciting to watch as it was airing, and we were all on Google Analytics watching our, viewers on the website going up. And yeah, we got a lot of great customers from it and really great exposure. I mean, thankfully the sharks liked us and portrayed us nicely.
What was your deal ask?
Our deal ask was 6%. We asked $500,000 for 4%, and we ended up at $500,000 for 6%.
Nice. And you got Bethenny, which I do agree. You know, she just seems like a perfect fit with her health background, her food background. It's a whole different animal when you're thinking about food, and she's great at marketing too.
Yeah.
But also, what a good deal, because I feel like they're always asking for 40 to 60%.
Or at least 30, right?
They always want all of it.
They do.
Yeah, well, that's why they got right down to our numbers, because they obviously realized we were asking for a high valuation. And I think that they, you know, my husband is a pretty savvy businessman. He's built and sold other companies before. He went to Harvard Business School. So I think when we got out there and they started talking to us, they sort of realized that our company was like of a high caliber. So thankfully they didn't throw us off the stage.
So what did you and your husband do in your previous life?
So my husband was first, we went to high school and college together. And then after we graduated from college, we got married, and he went to Harvard Business School. He was a filmmaker for a few years before that. And then he had a bunch of different startups that he built and sold. And I worked at Macy's first in product development. Then I transitioned into early childhood education for a couple of years. And after being a teacher and having my second child, I decided to stay at home for a little while. And that's when Yumble was born.
Isn't that amazing how your life, the things that you did in your life, like product development and early childhood education, it is also the most perfect fit for the product you created?
It's totally true. And I never, I didn't realize it until like well into my Yumble career, where I was like, wow, like I get kids and you learn a lot about parents as a teacher, because you're with their children all day and you learn how to talk to them and how to relate to them and how precious their children's lives are and how much care they take in the people who they trust to kind of take on or delegate out different responsibilities. I'm sure you hear all the time, all startups are tremendous roller coaster rides. But every time you come out from one of the kind of drops, you're very grateful for whatever you've learned from that experience.
So how has your business changed since it's been on Shark Tank?
The biggest two changes I would say is we are having an easier time expanding. So we're about to add on 8 more states. And people are very excited to talk to us once we say we were on Shark Tank. So it definitely gives your company some credibility. And I think also from customers' perspective, there's like a familiarity or someone who's already kind of vouched for us. So they're willing to kind of give us a try, I think, a little bit more easily. There's less friction.
It's that no like trust factor, but you're like on this national scale from TV and, you know, it's a reality show. But like you said, people have an affinity towards it. They love it. They love the products that they see on it. So yeah, that's really interesting, because otherwise your no like trust would come from moms recommending it, the kind of more of the traditional route versus that kind of global stage that you had, and having somebody like Bethenny a part, validate it, even though, there's other people too out there in the world that have validated it for you.
Exactly. It is that validation and a little bit of a known factor.
Yeah.
And that like factor, because on Shark Tank, they get to hear your backstory, whereas you're not having to give this whole long backstory of, hey, this is my product. This is why I created it. This is why you should love me, that sort of thing. It's all on there. And then you can just cut to the chase, basically. Nice.
Right.
I've bought everything that's been on Shark Tank, I feel like.
I actually haven't.
Really? I did got those curlers. I wear the deodorant that was on there, the charcoal one, basically everything. I'm a fan of the show. So I think that itself, lends to the instant consumer.
Yeah. I mean, we watched the show as a family for a long time. Now we've stopped just because it's too stressful now that we've been on it. But we really watched it for a while with our kids. And I love the show because it's really kind of made my kids think in a different way than I think they're used to. And we've been able to have sort of family conversations that are not your typical one about businesses and valuations and numbers. And they're, they understand the idea of investors and stuff like that. So I think it's been a positive experience for our family also.
So I know you're still a new business, but you're also quite far in business, going into your second year. So what advice would you give other product businesses starting out right now that perhaps don't have the partnerships or co-founders perhaps that that you were fortunate to have from high school, your husband, but for a person who's kind of starting out, they're a mom, they have a product or whoever they are, what would you say is some good advice for them to get started?
I would say don't be shy. Go for it. I think that you'd be surprised what you can get done on your own. And talk to everybody because people are interested. I think sometimes people get nervous if they talk about their product, someone's going to copy them. You have much more to gain by talking about your product than you have to lose by kind of keeping it a secret. And I think there's, you have to be really open-minded, very thick-skinned, accept a lot of the criticism and really listen, whether it's customers or people who are testing your product for you, but really listening to what it is that people want from the product that you're delivering and not to be afraid to pivot a little bit because what you envision it to be might not be exactly what it's going to end up being.
Right. And you started with no audience. There's a lot of people that have this built-in audience and then they release a product and the other people feel like, oh, I really need to build my audience first. You just went for it. You posted on Facebook and then started building it, one step at a time along the way. So I love that about your story. And you really did start out as a bootstrapper and just kind of figured it out. You didn't even have the food background. So that's wonderful to hear that you can learn anything in this day and age.
You really can. I even taught myself to code so that I could build a website.
And if you didn't have your 9-year-old do it for you.
Exactly. I should have.
I know they're going to be so useful one of these days.
I know.
So actually one thing I want to dig into is the validation of the product. So again, we work with a lot of startups or people within their first to second year, but especially for me, I consult a lot of startup companies, people that have the idea still in their head and they just don't know what it's going to look like when it gets out there and if it's even something they should spend all their hard-earned cash on and time. So I think one thing I just really want our listeners to take away from this too is the fact that you had an idea and you went for it, right? So you probably did a little research, but it wasn't something that took forever. You kind of had your background and you just said let's call it friends and family, right? Like it's people that you're friends with in a group. And said, hey, who needs this? Who needs help? And you kind of just went for it. You didn't have to worry about your packaging, right? Like you probably put it in Tupperware.
I put it in these little white boxes.
Yeah. Something nice, but nothing fully labeled with Yumble on it.
No.
Yeah. Because we have clients that are caught up in the packaging, even like the beautiful presentation versus seeing if people actually want the product, validating it, and then making changes along the way. What would you have to say about that?
Yeah, I think that's something you have to really find the right balance. You obviously want to put a product out that's good enough. My husband taught me the word least viable product. So you need something that at least people can get the concept. But if you wait until your product is perfect, you are never going to launch.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
We're still evolving the product. We're evolving the brand. We're evolving the product offering. The food is always improving. You're never done improving your product. So
yeah, that's it. That's the making of a good brand too, that you guys are always looking to make it better versus some of those brands that keep trying to take things away.
So Joanna, if you don't mind, could you take us into a peek into your life a little bit? Do you have help with your kids? Do you, I feel like there's such a balance, right? A lot of times since we're CEOs now, we're, business partners, we're moms, we're so many things. What does your life look like and what type of help do you have in the whole sphere of everything?
Yeah, I have a lot of help and, I would never be able to do half of what I'm doing if I didn't have that help. So I have a babysitter at home. So every morning I'm the only one home with my kids. I get them dressed, fed, and drive them to school every single day. And so that's sort of my carved out mom time. And I really don't ever schedule anything during that time. My kids really rely on knowing that I'm going to be the one there for that. But at the same time, they also know that when they get off the school bus to come home, I'm not going to be there. So that's when my babysitter pitches in, and she's wonderful. She can drive them places, and I have a ton of friends. It's a wonderful community that I live in. So they're also really big helps to me. And I'm also really fortunate to have both my parents and David's parents live nearby. So they help out and pitch in a ton also.
Yeah, I love that. And grandparents are the best, aren't they?
They are, because it's a treat for my kids. And so then I don't have to feel bad.
Well, one, I just want to thank you for opening up and sharing this with our listeners, because I think watching how quickly you've grown in a year and a half, and then the smart moves that you made, and a lot of that was financial moves, but then you didn't give away the whole thing. You know, some people would be like, you evaluated it, you just made really smart business decisions, which I think is why you are where you are. So what we like to do is we like to sort of wrap our interviews with some fun questions. So would you like to jump into those?
Yes.
Okay. So it's going to start with, what is your coffee order?
I make it at home. It's a regular black cup of coffee with a sweet and low. I know, it's horrible. It's my vice.
Sweet and low. They make those still?
I know. I have to like hide them in my house.
What is the favorite thing on your desk?
On my desk, my picture of my kids.
Cute. That's so nice. Finish the sentence. When I pick up my phone, I
spend too much time on it.
You wish you knew how to
sing.
Sing?
Yeah, I wish I was a good singer. I love to sing and I'm terrible at it.
It's amazing. That's such a good one. My husband he does sing, and I used to sing so loud in my car when I first met him. I swear the first 2-3 years with him, I never sang ever. Like, don't judge me.
I'm not good at it. So
yeah. And then he's always like, everyone's a good singer. Like, you just need the confidence. So
I disagree.
Okay. Yeah, I disagree also.
That's his nice way of telling me it's okay. What was the last show that you binge watched?
Fargo.
Oh, good one.
It's so good. But
I'm about to get into Game of Thrones again. And that's going to be my answer for all things.
My husband watches it.
What should the title in your email signature actually say?
Tired mom.
Juggler of all things.
Yeah, something like that.
And then, do you have an alter ego or stage persona, kind of like how Beyonce has Sasha Fierce?
Is it horrible if I say no? I don't think so.
No, some people are just confident, either on or off.
Yeah,
Perfect.
It sounds like you're just fine without one.
Yeah. And then Mina has the last 2 questions for you.
Yeah. So, Joanna, what is your most used or favorite emoji?
The winking eye with the tongue sticking out.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Which my husband always makes the face at me. And he's like, why do you always use that?
He's like, look, in real life, it doesn't really make sense.
It doesn't work in real life.
And then last question. We very much believe entrepreneur years are like dog years. You learn a lot very quickly. What would you say to baby Joanna now that you're further along in your entrepreneurial journey?
Stick through it. There's a lot of highs and lows, and each of the lows is balanced by the highs, and it makes it all worth it.
I love
Thank
that.
you. So share with our listeners how they can see more about Yumble and kind of connect with you.
For sure. So we're at yumblekids.com. That's our handle on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you want to follow me personally, I'm Joanna S. Parker on Instagram.
Amazing. Okay, Joanna, well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. And we can't wait to connect with you more. And everyone, check out their Instagram because it is beautiful.
Thank you so much for having me.
This episode is over, but it doesn't have to end. Head over to our Facebook group, search for the Product Boss Biz Community, or the link is also in the show notes. Come connect with other product bosses just like you. We'll see you in there.
If you love the Product Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, share, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time, Product Bosses, let's make it happen. like, I want to live there. I want to live in vacation and, suntans for days and stuff. So what you're saying, I mean, really is the difference between if someone wants to come out and compete with Joe Malone, how do they do that? Well, they have to create a similar experience for their customers through all ways.
All channels.
Right. And then what's maybe the reason they don't go for Joe Malone? Maybe she's someone who does want to buy smaller. Maybe she's not a department store person. Maybe she loves that light scent, but then would rather get it from like the local person in Brooklyn at, what is it? It's that indoor place in Brooklyn that sells cool things.
Artisan Flea, maybe?
Yeah. I think you already talked about that earlier. But like something like that where you're like, ooh, like I get to see the person in real life making this stuff and they have their apothecary and all that. So thinking about that and oftentimes people say like, look at the bad reviews and fix whatever is in the bad review. And then that could be your differentiating factor.
Yeah. I mean, we call it personality, right? It's more like essence of that brand. They're literally putting their dollars to buy the essence for themselves of that brand.
Absolutely. I think it's like every brand needs a personality because people don't buy products. They buy stories.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same reason why, like, I think you were saying, but you could get a knockoff of something and you're going to get the people who are okay with the knockoff because they still want to live that essence of the knockoff. Like in LA, everyone has the love bracelet Cartier, like knockoff. And you're like, you got that downtown in the jewelry district, didn't you? But they still want to be or have that bracelet or whatever it is. So you're selling that essence and you could tell. I mean, I reference this to my fashion clients all the time. I don't feel like Coach is the place anymore, but Coach used to be the American brand, right? The American designer brand. They're trying to come back at it. Or Michael Kors, and it was because that was like a cheaper version of if they wanted Chanel or whatever the bag line was. I wear a lot of David Yurman that has a whole feeling experience that versus, what's another one? Like Pandora or
Okay.
I don't know, trying to think like of another mall store or Tiffany's.
Yeah, Jared's or something.
Tiffany's good.
I'm not a Tiffany's person. I'm a David Yurman person, for example. And if you look at how they're selling to the different people, there's different ways of selling it. And so,
it's interesting on my website for my jewelry brand, I think somewhere in the about page, I said like, here's who I'm for. It's like for people who don't want a little blue box.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I can't really like copyright infringement if I'm like calling out Tiffany's, but like at the end of the day, it's like, when I design jewelry, I don't design for people who really wear Tiffany jewelry or like, that's like what they want. I remember a friend of mine came to me years ago and we had just met. It was like more of a business relationship and she was about to get engaged to her partner. They were looking for 2 engagement rings because it's a female couple. And, I was like, they were telling me what they wanted. And I was like, she's like, I was on your site and I really loved like XYZ ring because I do, even though it's not always my preference, I still do design some halo rings for customers, but I try to add my own little spin on it. People still love the halo. Anyway, so they wanted that. And I was like, yeah, well, I could totally help you out with that. And at the end of the day, they ended up spending like and my jewelry is not inexpensive, but someone who's buying jewelry at Tiffany is literally spending like 3 times more than what they would buy somewhere else, especially when they're buying the fine jewelry just to have the Tiffany name stamped in there. Later, when I was like doing some research to see like what she actually spent, the amount of money that she spent on a 1/2 carat diamond ring with a halo around it was like, to me, insanity. I'm like, you could have gotten that ring for way, way less. But at the end of the day, what was important to them is that they had a ring that had the Tiffany stamp on the inside. And so the people that I design for are not that. And so I think, Mina, you talked about this earlier. It's like the more you can say who you're not for and even like use that. It's like I 100% do that even in my brand story because I know that when I'm designing for people, it's really for the people who don't want something that anyone else has.
Right. And that's something that's a really good tip for when people are thinking about the avatar is if there's some way that you could put into a tagline or in a nutshell exactly who you are not or are, like in your case, you are not for the person that buys for the little blue box, right? Instead of, you're not for the person that would spend 3 times more, right? There's a very lengthy thing to that, but they get the feeling instantly it's a yes or no when they hear that tagline from them. those people are, they will leave. And that's a good thing. People get really scared when people unsubscribe from their emails even. And they're like, oh my gosh, my unsubscribes are going down. You should be thankful those people are leaving, because then they're not making you pay the tier price of the extra emails you're paying for, because Lord knows those get to be pretty expensive. And so when I see those people unsubscribe, I'm like, you know what? They were never going to buy from me because they are not my people. And I'm thankful that they had taken the time to unsubscribe, because they could just instead delete my emails.
It's so funny to me. I was talking with one of our partners in business, and this is really fascinating. And we're strategic partners for Flourish and Thrive. And they were doing a favor for us. And she said, well, we don't like to send out too many emails because we're trying to eliminate the number of unsubscribes we have. I'm like, well, why aren't you sending out emails? That's how you make sales. Like, I don't understand why people don't want to email people. You don't want to email them every day, but some brands do. I look at my Gmail folder because I have a separate folder for shopping online, separate email address that I use for when I'm shopping online, because I don't want it to go into my business inbox. And certain companies sometimes send 3 emails a day. I don't look at all those emails, and they probably have really low open rates in certain cases because people miss them. But at the end of the day, I frequently buy from those people, from those stores that I love to buy from. And while we're not necessarily the small independent designers or independent brands aren't necessarily an Intermix or a Net-a-Porter or an Outnet or Veronica Beard or one of those brands, or even Bandier that might be sending the 3 emails a day or an email every single day. You can learn a lot, I think, from what big brands are doing from an email marketing strategy to actually sell more products on your website. That's a total sidebar, but at the same time relevant, because I think the reason why I love being on those email lists is because they put me at the center of the story. It's the stuff that they're selling, the products that they have. I love also watching what they do for marketing. And if you're someone who struggles with marketing, I think that following brands that you love, because typically we are all part of some sort of aspect of our dream clients or the people that we want to bring into our orbit, the more you can study what they're doing, your marketing will just skyrocket if you can emulate that for your brand. Not copy, very different, but emulate that for your brand.
Jacqueline, what was that bag brand that you bought from that with your initials? Do you remember?
Henry Bendel's?
Yeah, Henry Bendel's. It's the timing. I remember Jacqueline bought that bag because she said, oh, I'm going to meet you at the conference. Oh, look, I got an email from Henry Bendel's. Oh, I'm going to buy this 3-piece set now all of a sudden. And it was done. So literally, any other time, she might have been annoyed, but at that time she wasn't. So I think it's just a matter of, you just have to be okay with that. Sometimes you're going to annoy people. You can't be perfect. You can't be, you don't know when they're going to buy. But at the same time, she is their customer. She'll never actually get to unsubscribe from their list. So.
Well, I will, because they're officially out of business, but
they are, no way.
Oh my gosh, Bendel's is officially out.
The Fifth Avenue store, everything, it closed down at the beginning of the year. They were bought out by L Brands, which owns Pink and Victoria's Secret and all that. And the problem is that they went young with it, I feel like. So they did actually lose me as a customer for a really long time, because it went from being, I always loved the functionality and the design of it all. And then they started going Kate Spade competitive with Victoria's Secret customer, which was really young. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that kind of killed it. That's my own professional opinion. So, but what Mina is saying though, is that I've been a fan since I was before 30, because my 30-year-old birthday cake was brown and white striped Bendel box.
It was?
It was.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
And that's a raving fan right there.
Whatever, many, many years later, age that I am now, I didn't buy because they were losing me, but they did get me on the cool luggage, right? Because I like that functionality. I didn't want to wear a backpack sitting in first class flying to a conference. I wanted to have something that looked more like a female business owner. And that's what sold me on that. So, I think it's such a great point, just the inboxing. And I love this, that we brought up the concept of unsubscribe, because people do get really scared that people are unsubscribing. But if they really are your fan, they're going to stay. They're going to be interested in what you have next.
That's true.
And use that unsubscribe philosophy for life. If you're living your best life and people do not want to be around you, let them unsubscribe from your life because they are not your people, you know?
I love it. And this is why I think like continually nurturing the people who already have bought from you, but then also continually bringing new people into your vortex is very important because you have to continue, because you are going to get people, you're going to lose people. You just will.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I rebranded and started my new business after closing the old one, I thought in the beginning that all those people were going to come and be my big fans and like buy all the other joy, but it's like it was a total different price point. It was a total different business model. And while my design aesthetic was similar, it was just the people who were buying from me from my old business were not necessarily the customers for my new business at that time. Now, some of them have come around, but I remember in the beginning when I started emailing my email list back then, I was losing people left and right. And it was devastating. I'm like, they don't love me anymore. But at the same time, I'm like, this is good. Like, I don't need to pay the extra money for the people that don't want to be there. And if they're never going to spend a couple $1,000s with me on an heirloom redesign or a piece of jewelry, like, what's the point having them there anyway?
Right. I mean, I think it's so true. Brands do evolve just like how Henry Bendels did, right? And so even as the business owner in being a solopreneur, your business now will look different than it is later on. So it's hard to keep the same focus and the same avatar because it will evolve.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like to give the example of like the beer industry where like Budweiser and everybody was trying to, they were targeting the young college guys that were like, what was that promotion? It was like, what's up or whatever. I can't remember. Do you remember?
What's up?
Yeah. And then like Dos Equis and what was the other one? Stella Artois, they go after the sexy, rich, affluent, educated man, the older man, the gentleman, basically the most interesting man in the world. And they went for that instead. And that kind of evolved out of, you know what, we're going to do something different. Like what Tracy says of, you don't have to cater to those people, those 20 somethings, just because you're beer, you can be a different version of that. And it can evolve into that too.
It's like the upgrade.
Yeah, right. The upgrade.
Yeah.
And even now, the Super Bowl commercials that were out this year in 2019, I think it was Budweiser, or not very good because I wasn't really fully paying attention, but they were like, we don't have this as an ingredient. So they were going more to now what the trend is like the natural, the people who don't want the high fructose corn syrup, that kind of thing. They were basically advertising against an ingredient that was in somebody else's beer that was their differentiating factor, right? Even though they may have always been this way, but they're realizing that the trend of awareness around maybe consumption of what you're putting into your body, that's enough to be like, oh yeah, that's it. My husband always talks about the Subway. There was a whole thing against Subway that it was like Subway has the same ingredient in it that tires have or something like that, right? It was like this.
Tires?
Yeah. Like it was a bashing Subway ad. Well, that ingredient was water.
Right? That's just shady though.
Oh
seriously.
Like, but like people remember that. And so, but if you can do that, not obviously to bash another brand, but if you can differentiate yourself in a creative way, I think it's just showing you what these big brands are even doing against each other. So Tracy, we like to wrap our interviews with some fun questions.
Let's do it.
Yeah. You ready to jump in? Okay. Yeah. So what is your coffee order?
Oh, I love Colombe coffee. La Colombe. I don't know how to say it. Is it La Colombe or La Colombe coffee? And I get Corsica with a splash of oat milk.
You're an oat milk lady. Me too.
Okay.
What's the favorite thing on your desk?
Oh gosh, my colored pens.
That's awesome. Finish this sentence. When I pick up my phone, I
check my text messages.
Oh, nice.
That's a good one. Everyone always says Instagram.
Yeah.
You wish you knew how to.
I wish I knew how to be a better singer and play an instrument at the same time.
Interesting. What was the last?
Your husband a run for his money on Broadway someday.
That guy can like pick up any instrument and play it. It's kind of insane. So you wish you knew how. Nope, I already asked you that one. What was the last thing you watched?
What was the last thing I binge watched? Oh my gosh. I started binge watching episodes. Do you guys know this show?
Yeah.
It's like a Showtime show from like years and years ago. I don't know why. I just was like, I want something easy.
What is it?
Episodes, and Joey's on it from Friends.
Oh.
And so
I was like, when you said episodes, I was like, yes, episodes of.
called Episodes. And like, there's so many episodes of episodes. And I wanted something easy to watch in bed, like, because I'm terrible. One of those people who like sticks my iPad like right in front of my face before I go to sleep. But whatever, I still fall asleep. And it's still going. I'm still binge watching it because it's taking forever to get through it.
It obviously was a good show though, because it was on for so long, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, he was the guy who had the TV career after, even though like in Friends, you were like, maybe not the best actor.
Well, he has a show now, I think.
Yeah. He just
has
keeps
gray
working.
hair.
All right. What should the title in your signature actually say on your email signature?
Creative badass at making money.
I love it. And then do you have an alter ego or stage persona?
I do. I don't really have a good name for her yet, but you know, I would call her like Confident Connie or something like that. I got to think about it. I don't have a name for her, but there is like, I kind of step into that. So I used to do these like, you know, I had one called Attractive Amethyst because I wanted to use like a jewelry name for when I was like going through that like rebuilding phase of my business. I'm like, you are like a money magnet. You're attractive amethyst. I haven't really thought about it, but like definitely when I walk on stage, like I'm pretty like outgoing anyway, but like something changes and I like come alive. It's like the weirdest thing.
Just call yourself Beyonce. That's all.
Beyonce.
Just give her.
Just Queen Bee. Queen Bee.
All right. Mina gets the last two.
Yeah. And what is your, I forget. I
Most
don't have
used
it.
emoji.
Yeah. What is your most used emoji?
I would say blowy kissy.
Oh, I love that one too. And I add additional heart usually. So if anybody ever direct messages us and gets a kissy face with an additional heart, that's always me. And last question, Tracy. We often say that entrepreneur years are like dog years. What would you tell baby Tracy in the beginning of her entrepreneur journey now that you're further along?
Oh, geez. It's not going to be easy, girl. But this is going to make you a really strong person. And the trade-off is that this is going to be the most fulfilling thing that you've ever done.
Agreed. Amen. I've got the
Amen.
show emoji hands up for you.
And a kissy face.
And a kissy face and a few other things.
So Tracy, tell our listeners how they can connect with you.
Awesome. Well, if you're a jewelry designer, I'd love for you to head on over to Flourish and Thrive Academy. You could take our jewelry brand Brilliance Factor quiz over at flourishthriveacademy.com/brilliance. And if you're not a jewelry designer and you're a creative of any type, you can download a special download that I have over at Creatives Rule the World called the Visionary Code. And it's super awesome. Whether or not you're a founder of a company, if you're creative, I think this is a really helpful way for you to kind of manage your energy so that you can spend more of your time being creative. And you can head on over to creativesruletheworld.com/VC to grab that.
Great. And we'll have that all in the show notes. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
This episode is over, but it doesn't have to end. Head over to our Facebook group, search for the Product Boss Biz Community, or the link is also in the show notes. Come connect with other product bosses just like you. We'll see you in there.
If you love the Product Boss podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, share, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time, product bosses, let's make it happen.